Chronexia in the Eight Hills has officially been put on hold. Not quite cancelled, but his video on the matter doesn't paint the best of pictures. For those of you who are new and out the loop on what Chronexia in the Eight Hills is, or even if you just haven't been following the anime recently, then I highly recommend watching my previous video which summarises years worth of updates on the anime project. Links will be in the description. This video is here to try and figure out what happened. How did an ambitious YouTube anime project created by a well-liked anime YouTuber with a large Patreon backing behind it end up failing after only 1.5 episodes were released? To do this, I'm going to go through Misty's announcement video that he released a few weeks ago to try and get an understanding of his side of the events. So this video is a standard Misty video. It's a bit of a clickbait title and thumbnail. This thumbnail is actually of a graveyard with an image of him looking upset. I bet at least one person clicked this thinking someone had died. The only way to even guess is the Chronexia in the Eight Hills related is the tiny logo in the top left, which has been purposely blended into the background so you can barely see it. At about a minute and a half into the video, he says Chronexia in the Eight Hills is going on an indefinite hiatus. He states that with a drop in Patreon funding and the apocalypse, he is unable to continue funding the anime project. Here's where I have a few problems though, and to get an understanding of what I'm about to say, I suggest you watch the video for yourself. I'll try not to use soundbites too much as to avoid taking them out of context, but from my understanding is that he's considered the patron to be a patron for his whole channel and not Chronexia in the Eight Hills anime project patron, which isn't true, or at least it wasn't. Since he uploaded this video, he has slightly redesigned his Patreon to now be focused on being a YouTube channel Patreon. But if you look at the images I've captured from my previous video, it was very much advertised as you're funding the production of Chronexia in the Eight Hills. So because of that, I've always tackled this anime with the mindset of all that Patreon money is going towards the production of Chronexia in the Eight Hills only. But we can kind of tell from the way he talks about his own Patreon is that he is using it as a supplementary income for himself, which to me is misleading to his patrons. I'm sure most of them are there to support Misty anyway, but it still makes Misty out to be a little bit untrustworthy in my opinion. The biggest problem I've had with this whole project from the very start is where and how the money from the Patreon is being spent. In my past videos I've done some very simple calculations on how I think the staff members will probably pay for their time working on the anime. I was even quite fortunate with being able to interview a former employee of Izune Studios who worked on Chronexia in the Eight Hills, and based on that information I feel confident to say that we should have got a lot more episodes than have been delivered so far. I'm going to give some basic facts here so you can get a little bit of an understanding on how much the Patreon has potentially made. Misty started up his Patreon on March 10th, 2016 and at its highest point was making just over $7,000 and at its lowest was around $1,200. It's currently sat at $1,800, so a few hundred above its lowest amount ever, which is still a decent amount. The Patreon has been running for 23 months as of February 2018, but Misty cancelled the project in January, so we're going to be doing our calculations based on only 22 months of his Patreon. With that being said, even at its lowest estimate of $1,200, Misty has at least pulled in $22,000 minimum. You can see with the graph that during 2016 he was earning more along the lines of $4,000 to $5,000 a month, and in 2017 it dropped down quite a bit to around $3,000 a month. This is based on the actual earnings as well, so after all the fees and Patreon card declines too. So I'm going to average it out to around $3,500 a month to keep things simple for this video. If we times $3,500 by 22 months, we come to the big sum of $77,000 of real earnings for the Chronexia in the Eight Hills anime. So what did we get for $77,000? 14 minutes and 8 seconds of animation and voiceover work with a 7-track OST including the intro theme. Look, I know people are probably thinking that I'm oversimplifying it and he had an animation studio to pay for and other expenses, but in reality he spent zero on advertising and marketing the project or the Patreon as he had an audience already to promote to. If anything, he probably made money by monetizing any videos speaking about the project. Izune Studio, the people animating the anime, do not have an office space to pay for as most of them live in different countries, so they have more than likely each been working from their houses. The story and script had already been written by Misty, so no need to hire any script writers, and I can't really see where the money could have been spent anywhere else other than towards the animation, voiceover and music / special effects. That's my issue with the money side of the project. But another thing I want to talk about is his attitude towards the whole thing. He explains that whole anime production was meant to just be a little fun endeavour for everyone involved and to help sell his book that anime is based off of. But in my opinion, when you start to involve other people paying you money to create the anime, that's when you need to start looking at the project from a more serious business mindset. That doesn't mean work yourself to death. The Patreon is monthly. It's not like people are only paying after each episode comes out like some other YouTubers do. People are paying however much a month regardless of any episode release or even an update. Throughout the 2-year life cycle of the Patreon there were only a handful of updates, so for the most part people were pledging based on blind faith. And that's okay, some people can do that, but clearly enough people were starting to realise that no progress was being made, and they left, which is why his monthly pledge amount is so low. Maybe had he made some real progress during the times he was earning 4 times the amount he is now, he would have kept those backers and stopped the production from being put on hiatus. And lastly, he talks about the haters and kind of shrugs off all the criticism he got about the anime and chalks it up to, well, these people just hate Westerners trying to make anime influenced content. Which a small minority of people probably did, but the success of shows like Ruby and Legend of Korra really show this isn't the case. Most video complaints were actually legit as to go after the bad animation, voice acting and even the script itself. I always tried to steer away from that side of the topic and felt I've made some very valid points in my videos, so hopefully people understand that I've never tried to just hate on this guy because he's trying to make something he's always dreamed of. At the end, he still hasn't offered any solid information on production expenses, and with this news I highly doubt we ever will see anything. I also think it's highly unlikely this project will ever be picked back up again by Misty. For the people who did pledge to the Patreon, I hope you felt your money was well worth the content you received. I think if any lesson can be learned here is that don't give someone a bunch of money purely based on the fact that he has a lot of subscribers on YouTube. He admits it himself that he wasn't prepared for something of this scale, and personally I think the whole project dragged out much longer than it needed to. Thanks for continuing to watch my videos about this anime, despite it maybe getting a little bit repetitive. The saga seems pretty much over, so look forward to new content on this channel. Give a like if you liked it and subscribe for more.